sharing a study experience. I took down notes from various sources on the strange case of Edward Casey and found it quite interesting. I hope you listen and receive something worthwhile from this. It's my hope that you'll gain information and ideas to help you to become a better person. The more you do, the better you'll think. And the better you think, the more you'll be able to face life's challenges successfully. For more than 40 years, Edward Casey claimed to have an altered state of consciousness that revealed profound information. Predicting the future is probably what he's most known for. He described a new era of enlightenment and peace when the divinity in humans would be manifest on the earth. But before this, Edward Casey foresaw a period of natural disasters, wars, economic collapse, and social political unrest. Edward Casey believed that these horrible events could be averted if humans changed their behavior. This is the purpose of prophecies, to warn people to change so the prophecies won't happen. A good gloom and doom prophecy is one that doesn't occur. Edward Casey would say that even the Lord of Lords could not accurately predict future events because humans have free will and they can alter or change the future. Skeptics of Edward Casey point out that some of his predictions did not come true. One can say that his prophecies helped to change enough people to prevent some of them from occurring. Some of Edward Casey's visions of the future were as follows. In 1924, Edward Casey predicted the crash of the stock market after a long bull run, which would trigger the Great Depression. In 1931, Edward Casey foresaw the Great Depression would lift in the spring of 1933, which it did. In January 1934, Edward Casey predicted that Hitler would rise to power and reign over Germany. In March of 1935, Edward Casey said that unless spiritual attitudes are raised, world conditions would terminate in revolution throughout many foreign nations. Later that year, in October, Italy invaded Ethiopia. In 1936, the Spanish Civil War broke out. The Soviet campaign of political repression, imprisonment, and execution began in August 1936. In 1937, Japan invaded China. In 1935, Edward Casey predicted that Hitler would remain in power until there was an overthrow or an outside war. In July of 1939, a retired naval commander asked Edward Casey, "Am I likely to be recalled to active service within 2 or 3 years?" Edward Casey answered, "The only likelihood will be in 1941. This too, if people pray and live as they pray, will pass." Edward Casey foretold archaeological facts which later proved to be true. Among other things, he said that the Giza monuments in Egypt were aligned with the stars as of 10,500 BC, and that an ancient civilization influenced the development of Egypt, Maya, and Paharanti. Edward Casey correctly described the location of the Essene community, which was later discovered. He also revealed several series of information concerning Palestine. In 1932, Edward Casey advised the Jews to regard the advent of fascism and anti-Semitism in Europe as a time to fulfill the biblical prophecies which foretold that the Jews would return to Israel. In May of 1948, the nation of Israel was reestablished just as Edward Casey had predicted. The visions of the future that have not happened include when Edward Casey foresaw the possibility of a third world war and strife arising around these areas above Australia and the Indian Ocean and Persian Gulf. Edward Casey predicted that there would be three profound archaeological discoveries that would revolutionize the way we understand human origins, cosmology, and religion. Edward Casey predicted China would eventually become a Christian nation. Edward Casey predicted volcanoes and earthquakes on the southern coasts of California and the areas between Salt Lake and the southern portions of Nevada, but that there would be more in South America. These would cause changes on the west coast and the central portion of the United States. The ocean would rise as much as 30 feet with the shifting of the Earth's magnetic poles that melts the polar ice caps. These changes will be gradual. This will most likely affect Asia and the upper portions of Europe. Some lands will rise out of the oceans, particularly off the east coast of the Americas. Will these future predictions come true? Well, only time will tell. I hope you enjoyed this learning of Edward Casey. And I want you to know that I'm influenced by what I see, hear, and read. I take it in, I mix it around a bit, and I spew some of it back out. Sometimes I add chocolate sauce with a cherry on top. My suggestion is that if you find this material interesting, is to investigate it for yourself to see if you focus on the same things. It's my bet that you'll find something slightly, if not altogether, different. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, fare thee well.